Hey, this is Simeon for PraiseTracks.com. And we're getting ready to step back into time once again to explore a couple of beautiful pianos provided by Real Samples. So come along. It's amazing when we think about piano libraries being time machines, and I know I've said this many times before. We are taking these instruments that are hundreds of years old, loading them into our samplers, and putting them beneath our fingers, and it is an amazing experience. And so Real Samples has teamed up with Audio Plugin Deals once again to offer a rare piano bundle. And this is a collection of two pianos. One is a Swiss Grand, and the other is a really interesting one. And we're going to take a look at both of those today. Okay, the first piano that we're going to take a look at is the Swiss Grand. And the Swiss Grand is from the private collection of famed musicologist Andreas Beurmann. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Beurmann. And this piano is dated to 1860. That is what you're playing. You're playing an 1860 grand piano, and this is amazing. If you read about this, the piano company was called Uni and Hubert, and it was the largest piano company in the world, pretty much. But the factory burned down, but thank goodness this piano was preserved, and Real Samples, like they always have a very grand history of doing, is taking this and providing it for us to enjoy. I'm going to pull up Kontakt, and let's take a look at this. They give you a 16-layer, an 8-layer, and then a 32-layer edition, depending on how your CPU and that type of thing, your overhead, you can just select up to a 32-layer piano, and that's what I have loaded right here. And so let's just play around with this some more and enjoy this sound. It's amazing. So you notice that they've got two layers, the note on and the release layers, because Kontakt limits the amount of samples in a particular layer. So let's just play with this a little bit. One thing about this piano that they mention is the low end. So let's just kind of lay into this and see what happens. It's close to Christmas time. But see, those 32 layers really give you just a lot of dynamic range. So let's open up the wrench here. And what the wrench does, it exposes all of the different things that we can edit. And you can see here in the mapping editor, all of those 32 layers. So let's see. Let's go to the effects. And you've got all of these insert effects. And I'm still learning about Kontakt on how to get more out of this. So we go down to insert effects and let's go to reverb and just do that. And just see what happens. And then we can adjust a little bit the wet and the dry blend, the size of the room, and the delay. The room time. It's got a really interesting attack to it. But what do you expect for an 1860 piano? It's incredible. Having these effects possibilities just expand what you can do with this. Let's just add something else. Just kind of get a little crazy. Let's go to the modulation and faces. Let's just put some faces in here and just not mess with anything and see what happens. You see? I can't imagine them ever expecting their piano to sound like that, but you can do it. That's the beauty of sampling, the beauty of curating these. There's that word curating. I think curating is going to go down in 2021 as probably the most used word of the year. But it's taking something and bringing it down to us so we can enjoy it. Preserving history, preserving these beautiful instruments, and that's what Real Samples has done. So let's close this out and let's go to something else. One of the interesting things that they've done is they've given us two tuning options. They've given us the original, I think it's 432 hertz, and so let's load that in. It's a little, so 440 is a little bright. So let's just I'm going to drag that over. Let's close the wrench first. Got to close the wrench first. Now I'm going to drag, and these are multis. So these load two different instances of, like two banks, one for the notes on and one for the release samples. So there we go. So I just drag that over, and this is the 432, and let's listen to that. It's kind of interesting. Your ear is perceiving something a little different. Now let me just let's throw back in the 440 tuning. I'm going to just drag this over again, just so we can hear the difference. Oh, you know what we'll do? Let's do this so we can kind of hear them together. So I'm going to drag the 432 in, and I'm going to merge these layers together. So we're going to have the original, the 440 here, and then we're going to have the 432 underneath. So I'm going to mute these. You can hear how bright that is. Just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. It's subtle, but it's interesting. Now, let's do this. Let's just play all of these together. And you can hear how much difference it is. Yeah, it's a little bit, you know. It's out of tune. But that is so interesting. And let's just solo this. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can't do that. Let's just mute this again. Just listen one more time. And mute it. So it's very interesting, very subtle, but historical because, you know, one of the things, when they tune things at a little bit lower, it actually puts a little less stress on the piano itself because, you know, there's not as much tension. When you think that, you know, the tighter that you tune a string, the more tension that you're putting on there. And that's one of the reasons why they would tune harpsichords a little bit lower, because just the physics of it. So that's interesting. I'm glad that they have given us this option to have the historical tuning and the 440, which is more standard for us today. All right, let's take a look at the next piano. We're going to step into the doors of the Musical Instrument Museum in Brussels, where they have preserved so many of these amazing instruments. And this is the Lutheal piano. And this is the last one that's in existence. It's the only one of its kind in the world that's still playable. And it was built in 1919. And it's really cool because it is a Playel piano. It's a Playel Grand piano, but with the Lutheal mechanics in it. And what this is, it's a way to, the ability to create a prepared piano of such using the different mechanisms and stops of the Lutheal mechanism. That's what you can kind of see in this picture here. Yeah, so you've got all of these different rails and felts that you pull the stops, the knobs, and it engages these really cool effects like a prepared piano would. So we've got all stops, then we've got the like a clavichord, and then the harp Tiree stop. And what that is, that's the felt layer. And then when you put the clavikin and the Tiree, I guess that's what they're calling that, it creates like a cimbalom effect. And you can see that they've given us so much. So I'm going to let's just take a listen to the piano by itself without any of the preparations engaged. And what I like to do too, when you load this patch in initially, it gives you 32 voices. I'm going to bump this up to 128. Sometimes I go as high as I can. So here we go. You hear that Playel that signature Playel sound, and there is something about it that is different than a Steinway, different than a Fazioli, different than a Busendorfer. It's got its own beautiful tone. And this is without any effects. Isn't that beautiful? And again, if you look at I'm going to just pull up the mapping editor. You got 32 layers, and that's really something. So they give you the option to have the preparation on the lower part and the upper part, and then they give you another preset that it's on the whole keyboard. So that's what I want to do. Yeah, so I'm going to go to the piano Clavikin stop 1 and 4 complete, and that way we have the whole keyboard here. So here we go. So that puts a little interesting attack on there. So let's just play this some more. And you hear that rattling down there in the bottom. Very cool effect. It just kind of has a little bit of percussion in there. Really nice and bright attack. So now let's check out the Harp Tiree, and this is the felt layer. So you can hear it sounds like it's being plucked like a harp. Very interesting. Especially when you get down the lower end like that, it really gives you some really neat effects. Now let's combine both the Clavikin and the Harp Tiree together. And so what this does, it just gives you such versatility because you've got so many different combinations of these different preparations that you can put on together. So this is like all stops, and they call this the Cimbalom. When they put the Clavikin and the Harp Tiree together, it's going to be like a Cimbalom. So let's just check this out. And if it's your first time visiting the channel, please subscribe and click on those notifications, all that great stuff. It really helps to support what we're doing. So thanks so much for that support. All right, here we go. This is the Cimbalom. All stops. All the stops are out. it's voices from the past. And I think Ravel actually wrote music for this instrument, and since none are in existence, this is the only way that you can recapture those pieces written specifically for this piano, because there would be a little difficulty in hauling a one-of-a-kind piano, and the only one in the world, taking it around to different places in the world. So now you basically have the same thing virtually. Just the beauty of being able to sample and make it accessible to all of us. So I did something really interesting with the effects with this piano, and I called it Christmas. It's just the time of the year, and so I'm going to replace this multi, and let's close the browser. So what I did, pop in the wrench here, I just put some replica delay. That's fun, and reverb, and put a little bit of flair in there as well, just to kind of give us some really neat effects. And, man, that's the fun part, is to jump in there, click that wrench, and experiment. And then if you find something that you like, you can save that as your own multi, as your own preset. So let's just take a look at this, or listen to this. And you see with your ears. And so let's just see what we can hear. Isn't that amazing? So thanks for joining me. It's always fun to go back in time through these virtual instruments, these historical pianos, these one-of-a-kind experiences that you can experience for yourself. Again, this is Simeon. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.